so then people came to Rochester, and people like Bertha Palmer and Grace Coolidge, who would become the first lady, they came, and then they shared this method and support in their communities. So even in the White House, presidents would also take advantage of the Harper method. And British royalty became her customers. She had shops throughout Europe, part of Central and South America, and even part of Singapore at one time. So she built it by delighting the customer, having this innovation, and then very clever marketing. She allowed people to bring their children into the shops and had play areas, which today we would call childcare.
That's right. Yeah.
But she taught her people that these are the future customers, and you want them to be comfortable coming to this shop. So she was brilliant. She also only put, for the first 100 of her 500 shops, only poor women were allowed to own her shop. Therefore, she had this incredible loyalty. These women would do exactly what she told them to do. One woman who actually went to Chicago said, I haven't taken a step outside of Rochester, but I'm going to Chicago because Martha said I should. So
all right.
their loyalty,
yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Their loyalty was extraordinary in a time when you didn't have computers and FaceTime and other ways to keep track and connect.
But she got these poor women to work for her and everything, and yet the people who have the money are the rich women. And those are going to be the patrons, the people coming in to have their hair done. So it's interesting. So she used the people who were sort of loyal to her, the people from whom she emanated, I guess, to look after the richer ones, and brought them all together.
That's true. But when you see what those poor women turned into, they were self-supporting entrepreneurs because they own their shop. And I love some of the pictures in the book because it shows the difference. It shows how these women are now well-dressed. And they, as they said, they could decide whether to buy a strand of pearls or even whether to marry. So it was an extraordinarily empowering move for these women. Of course, the customers did have money, but there were also middle-class women and the like who were using her shops because they were in the Midwest, they were in Florida, they were in the far West, Idaho, Montana, Texas. So they were everywhere.
So she did all of this in her actual building up of the business. Was she one of the operators at the very beginning and then just became the business person? Or did she just use these poor women to do all the I guess the donkey work, if you use an old expression, but to use the heavy lifting, and then she went out and did all the business deals with the different banks and with people like that?
Well, she did originally run the original Harper shop, and then eventually set up 5 training schools and a manufacturing center because they made their own products. And she was often key, from what I understand, in finding location. You know, in real estate, they keep saying location, location, location. So she had a sixth sense about where to locate and the like. Now, as I said, each of those shop owners were trained. You couldn't become a shop owner until you had completed the training. And then those shop owners did run their shops. She pulled everybody together every year in a convention and would update and socialize. But a key difference about her versus the robber barons, who were also successful at that time, was John D. Rockefeller was so afraid of how he had treated people and his employees that he had armed guards around his house. Martha, who owned a mansion, when Harperites would come into town, would stay at her mansion. So that was quite extraordinary. She welcomed them as part of really her family. I guess you would say that Martha Matilda Harper was symbolic of the American dream.
Jane, how do you envisage the American dream today? And how did you envisage it then?
Well, I think the American dream is all about opportunity for anyone with a creative idea and the willingness to work hard. And I think it's as relevant today as it was back then. What Martha represents is encouragement to any person, be they an immigrant, be they poor, be they creative, artistic, that if you have a concept, a dream, that you need to stick to it, but that you can make it succeed in the United States, as well she did.
Right. Do you think she would have succeeded had she stayed in Canada? 19th century.
Probably not. I think if she had not even come to Rochester, she might not have succeeded. Rochester was the perfect community for someone who was an outlier, like she was, to succeed, because they had already embraced a number of not only what I would call people with weird entrepreneurial ideas who are coming via the Erie Canal and creating whole new businesses, including Kodak. But it was also a community that embraced people who were advocating equality. They brought Frederick Douglass to Rochester when he was writing his anti-slavery magazine. And had it not been such a supportive community, she might never have been given the opportunity that she was.
How about today? What happened to the Harper method, and does the franchise still exist today, Jane?
Unfortunately, the Harper method was sold. The product manufacturing and training schools were sold in the 1970s, but Harper shops continued to operate, however, without their proprietary products. And only recently, probably in the last 5 years, have the last Harper shops closed. The last one in Rochester, and I just saw an obituary of a woman from Alabama who closed her shop about 2 years ago. So unfortunately, we can only dream about being a Harper customer, but we can learn from her, and we can build from her example.
Okay, Jane, we only have about a minute left, so I wanted to ask you, what projects are you working on now? What do you like to do most today? Are you more author than speaker, or vice versa?
I'm both. I love speaking to people. I speak around the country to young people to inspire them with the Harper story, and also to business and women leaders to use Harper as an example of the people and women who have achieved that we don't know enough about. And
Sure.
if we did, then we would have more role models to demonstrate that your gender, your immigrant status, your education should not limit you in the United States for what you can achieve.
Yeah, no, that's the definite thing here. Jane Plitt, we only have about 15 seconds left. This interview will air in the coming weeks. Jane Plitt, Plitt, is an author and speaker and the official biographer of Martha Matilda Harper for all ages. I'd like to thank Jane Plitt for being on our show today. My name is Richard Bont, and this is Curmudgeonly Yours, an eclectic show on Society Bites Radio. You can download these podcasts on societybitesradio.com or richardbont.com, and you can also listen to us on iHeartRadio, iTunes, Spotify, Sound Echo, and several other internet platforms. Thank you, Jane. So I'd like to thank our guests for being on Curmudgeonly Yours today, and please, if you like what you heard, send me an email to richard@richardbont.com. And if you didn't, please keep your comments to yourself. Remember, this is Richard Bont and Curmudgeonly Yours on Society Bites Radio, where everything is what it seems, nothing is what it seems, and what is not said is often of most interest.